right, all right. Happy New Year's Eve. Almost New Year's. Yeah, awesome. I'm loving it because I think this year I'm just me and Jill and the dogs and the cat are going to chill at home and have some good food and just watch everything on TV. But we got Raul had a last minute kind of emergency that he had to deal with. He's okay, but he's handling some stuff. He's gonna maybe try to jump on when he's in the car, but as life happens, it just kind of kicks you right in the giblets sometimes. So thanks guys for tuning in. You're gonna have to deal with Doug and myself to entertain you and throw some knowledge your way or start a conversation. But this one we were going over because we have like before each show, like the week prior, we kind of figure out what we want to talk about, and we don't want to be repetitive, and we want to kind of keep things fresh but also relevant. So this seemed like a really good topic. So today's topic, we're going to go over operational stress versus trauma, and sometimes how that can get like a little bit blurry at times. And I think that happens like throughout the year. So I think to kind of lay it out, there's a couple different things here. Doug comes from a career strictly based with narcotics investigations and special operations. So that in and of itself it's its own little box of operational stress and trauma. And we're going to talk about how those look and how they're compartmentalized for agencies. Not unlike Raul, where a lot of his operational background is special operations, SWAT tactics, and also I think on the periphery doing some adjunct type of investigations or ancillary investigations to what he was doing as well. I'm a little bit different. I did do the special operations side of the house, but I also, and Doug has some of this in his pedigree as well, a lot of vice narcotics work, and I have homicide and canine and criminal intelligence work, working with a bunch of different federal agencies and stuff like that. I was very fortunate in my career that everything I wanted to do, I got to do, with the exception of Harbor Patrol. Always wanted to do that, never got a chance to. It's okay. That and Bomb Squad. I was going to be the first supervisor for the Bomb Squad when we started our, which is, again, that in and of itself is a whole different thing. So when we talk about operational stress, I like to look at it in like stages, almost like developmental stages. So the first thing out of the gate, and a lot of people don't remember this who have been on the job for a little bit, the stress of applying for this job, on what that looks like. I don't know what it looked like, Doug, for you. I know for me, I applied while I was still active duty military. So I had no break. There was active duty military. I went into my reserve status, and I was immediately into an academy. So I had the stress of leaving the military, kind of, and then transitioning like almost on a pivot to the first responder community or going into a 6-month police academy. So the stressors for me were a little bit different. So operationally, I've been coming off my military duty. I was injured, but still kind of, I was back to full speed, so to speak. And then going into the academy, I was one of the most significant things that I was stressed about. And this is operationally. This has nothing to do with anything kind of being exposed to trauma, maybe as a result of trauma. But I had, because of the military and the explosions and gunfire, have horrible, horrible hearing. And one of the tests to get in, and Doug, you guys had a hearing test, right? You got to have a standard physical. Well, everything else I was fine with. I had no problem. The psychological test, the one thing that scared me to death, and I thought, you know what, I am not going to get this job because I can't hear. And I remember going through the whole process, and one of the guys that was going through with me was, or that was like helping me through the process on the department, goes, so you got any questions, concerns? I said, I only have one concern, and that is I don't hear very well. He goes, you wear a hearing aid? I said, well, no, I didn't want to apply. I told him, I said, I didn't want to apply for a hearing aid in the military because I thought that'd be an automatically squad. They're not going to hire some deaf kid to come into the police department, right? So I told him, and I was pretty upfront. I wasn't trying to sugarcoat anything. And I was like, I can't hear. He's like, we got about 15 cops with hearing aids. And I'm like, really? And I remember that just kind of lowered it a little bit. And I went into the hearing test, which anybody who's been in the military will tell you that is the most hilarious and or stressful component. And I'm later on in my police career, following all the stuff, the damage done in the military, I took a test for a neuro, ear, nose, and throat guy. And they sit you in that room with those earmuffs that like kind of squish your brain. And I wasn't hearing anything. And the lady got all pissed off at me. So that is the operational side of the very beginning to coming in onto the job. What was it like for you, Doug? Did you have anything like, but again, you're coming off and also you were in the middle of, you're competing at probably the highest level physically going into an academy, which probably was a joke when they came to the physical fitness standards of going into the academy. What was it like for you?
Yeah, that was the physical part was obviously really easy and stress-free, but it was everything else to include the hearing, things like that. Yeah, there was a lot of stress in there, and physically is how I got all the way through. Like they would ask me questions, and then they would see my resume and they would skip questions. And if they wouldn't have skipped those questions, they probably wouldn't have hired me. They just assumed because of my athletic background. I say that, but it was very stressful. And what a nightmare to become a cop back in the day. I mean, the interviews and the background checks, and I became a cop when I was 28. And so I'd been on my own, traveling all over, in the country, out of the country, playing soccer. And when they were doing my background, they were like, "Hey, well, where were you on the month of June in 1991?" And I'm like, "Who the hell knows?" Shit, I don't know. So they wouldn't give me a job. I had to get proof of that, and
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this went on through the academy. And then after I got hired on the spot at my agency. And even after the academy, the investigators and the background people and the police academy, they kept calling me and saying, "Hey, if you can get us this paperwork of where you were this month, you'll be able to get a job." And I was like, "Bitch, I'm already hired, man. Click." But that whole time, there was no way. I could not find anything. And I'm thinking, I'm spending all this money on the police academy, all this time, 9 months of my life. And, I'm not going to get hired because I can't prove where I was for a month. And just that was enough to start the stress in the police world.
But that's just, again, that goes to, there's nothing traumatic about that. I mean, long term, maybe, but this is a very acute kind of situational, so more occupational stress. So, and Doug, you brought up a good point. When I took the police test, 1,200 people took the test in a stadium. Now, you're lucky to get 10 people to take a test.
Yeah.
So
we had several hundreds.
It got to, well, because I applied to a bunch of different departments, NYPD, because you put down your race, ethnicity, and stuff like that. I got a call from the Hispanic Officers Association or Auxiliary League or whatever it was. They were like, "Hey, Ro, do you need any help?" Because there was a big push to hire a lot of Latino, and I was like, "Okay, whatever." They're like, "We'll drive you to where you need to go to," all that stuff. But like their academy has 1,500 people in their academies, right? So you're talking about 20,000 people taking a test, or for where I was a smaller agency, you talk about like 1,200, maybe 1,300 people taking a test, which there's only maybe 60 to 100 slots, maybe, right? So you're like, what am I going to do? So and I remember passing the test, the written test, because ours was real quick, written test. And again, I was like, I don't even know what to study. Like people, I was sitting next to a guy who actually failed. I was like, I don't know what this test is going to be like. He's like, I've taken like 15 of these practice tests. I'm like, they have practice tests? He's like, yeah. And so they grade it, and then if you pass, you immediately schedule your psych or your physical, something like that, right? Oh no, then you get scheduled for they called it the BPAD, the Behavioral Aptitude
Yeah.
Battery Test, right? And ours ours was in a motel. I remember I felt like I was doing a drug deal almost because they had blocked out a bunch of these rooms by this place that's no longer there called the Great Steak, one of those places where you make your own steak and shit like that. So I'm like, what is this? Like, this is fucking goofy as shit, right? So wound up going in there. That guy didn't make it, and I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't take his dumbass practice test to get on this job. So like those are one thing. So the beginning of your career, you're starting out, and then when you're in the academy, they really kind of throw a lot of stuff at you. And this is for anybody kind of into this or watching this, probably is. I don't want to go ad nauseum to what academy stuff is like, but that in and of itself can be its own stress or occupational stress wise. Going there, making sure everything's good. I literally, me and two other folks that were in my academy class, just left the military, and so somebody coming and yelling at us, I was like, that is hilarious. That and one of the guys that I was sitting in front of me was like visibly shaken. Some idiot in the first day of class parks his car in the officer parking instead of the overflow lot where we're supposed to go. He goes, "Who's driving?" Blah 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 blah, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" And then they start yelling and screaming, and I'm like, "All right, what? Parked in the wrong spot. Go get your shit and move it, right?" No, everybody had to go out, and yeah, they made a big thing. So it was those like little stressors. The big things for me was, again, it was a small room, so I could hear a little bit better. I wasn't really sweating too much of anything. It was kind of a nice evolution for me. Learning some really good stuff. We back in the day had to memorize all legal terminology, whether it be probable cause, investigatory detention, but verbatim. And when you wrote it out, if you wrote the whole thing out and missed a comma, fail. So that was a little bit stressful. I was like, I've been doing a lot of kinetic stuff and been operational, and now I'm doing like administrative work, which was a little bit foreign to me. So that was a little bit stressing. For me, I was one of the first people to go, and I always wore suits. You always had to wear a suit when you're going in. The day we got fitted for our uniforms for the academy, we got in short sleeves. And I was like, oh no. I was the only one with tattoos on my arms. And they had that, like, they didn't have a policy or anything like that. And I remember getting fitted, and the lead instructor was a Vietnam era veteran ranger, like 3 Purple Hearts. Since that guy was a hardcore military guy. So he kind of got it. But he's like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Now we're hiring clowns and blah, blah. And I'm like, you have a special forces tattoo on your arm. Like, whatever. So the stress of like being that guy, and also because I went to the academy. This is Virginia. I'm raised in New York, and I would talk to my buddy who was sitting next to me. He was a black guy, former drill instructor for the Marine Corps, and his name is George. I said, George, you're gonna have a problem. I'm thinking the South, racist, and all this good stuff. I was like, you're gonna have a rough go at this, my friend. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, they don't hate me more than they hate you. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, they hate Northerners more than they hate anybody else. I'm like, are you shitting me? And he's like, yep. So, man, like me and this, it was me, George, and a good buddy of mine, Mike, who wanted to leave and go to NYPD and some other place. But we were the 2 New Yorkers sitting in the back row. And I was like, oh, gee, you got to be shitting me, right? So that kind of goes by the wayside. And then you hit the street. Mine was a little different. I went right immediately into narcotics, but you're always trying to prove yourself. So for me, the operational stress was I want to do my pride was kind of driving everything. I want to do everything right. I want to go buy this dope. I want to buy this gun, whatever it is. I wanted to do that. and I didn't want to make stupid mistakes. I didn't want to. Here's the problem: I made so many dumb mistakes, like throughout, like the beginning of my career. I would just get, and if you made a mistake, this is how they knew. You kind of knew that they liked you when they ribbed you for it. So the stress of not making a mistake, but when you make a mistake, you're going to be the butt of the joke until somebody else makes a mistake, and so that was kind of all consuming for me. What was it? What was it like for you first getting on the job?
Man, it was, I mean, obviously, about my first day as a cop. That was difficult. But getting to the job, yeah, the stress alone. And I'll tell you what the biggest thing was for me when I went to the police academy, and this followed me throughout my entire career, and it's still being taken place. Did I say that right? It's still
Yeah.
taking place today. Was the fear factor. They were trying to instill fear into us. And everything was, you'll get kicked out, you'll get this. Like, we had a guy in our academy one day, and they came in and they were like, "Hey, you," they walked up to him and they go, "Get all your stuff and follow us." And he got kicked out, never saw him again. It was this fear thing. If you were late, you were kicked out. If you fail a test, you were kicked out. Everything was this fear factor of getting in trouble. And when I went to the academy, probably like you, it was more militaristic than it is now. There was formation, there was dress codes, there was PT every day, marching, things of that nature. And it was, and at the time that I was in the police academy, I was running like 2 marathons a month. So it really sucked for me. I was training before the academy was 12-hour days.
You probably got in worse shape.
Yeah, it definitely messed my clock up. I was training before the academy during lunch. When everybody was going to lunch, I was training, and I was training when I got home, studying. So, sleeping very minimal hours. And then I had this fear factor of every little thing I did was, going to get me kicked out. Then you finally get at the academy, you pass all the tests, you jump through all the hoops, the polygraphs, the backgrounds. And, my presentation, I use the wheelbarrow effect. All these things are going into this wheelbarrow. Then you get the job.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get the job, it's the same thing. My entire career, I noticed that our department policed the cops more than they policed anybody else.
Oh yeah.
The supervision was always policing everything the cops did. You couldn't even take a freaking breath without somebody going, "Hey, that's not in the policy and you're out of compliance." And, "Hey, I saw this and I heard that." And you're like, "Shut the fuck up, man. I'm trying to do a job here." And my agency, we always worked we were highly, highly, highly high crime area, off the Richter scale for a crime, just like Norfolk. But we were just in a tight little honey hole, 17,000 people of government housing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was just a very violent area. So you're going out like I did your first day. Your first call is a bank robber and a high-speed chase. Your second call is a shooting. That was my first day. And what I remember that was, it was fun on the first day. It was like, oh shit, this is the real deal, man. I was having a blast. But what I remember more than that first day was the supervisor who showed up on scene and showed his ass.
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, what are you doing? Or you did this, you do that, and hey, why are you doing this?" And and you're sitting there, your first day, and you're like, "Hey, man, I was just involved in a fucking melee of bullets, and in a shooting, and you're over here worried about, did I do this and did how about give me a fucking minute to catch my breath." Because I don't know if you were paying attention, but the call before this was a bank robber and a high-speed chase, and I got thrown out of the car to go catch a guy on foot in a town I'd never been in before.
Yep.
So it was the nonstop, and we see it today. Supervisors, in my personal opinion, have gone to garbage. In my department, I love my department. I don't bash them. But when I am affiliated with my old department, and I look to see who the supervisors are, and I'm like, you've been a cop 5 years? You're a fucking lieutenant?
Yeah, it's
You're an
great.
FTO? You've been here a year. You ain't even got your face punched in, and you're teaching other cops.
Yeah.
And so I see this, and those things. Now let's flip flop. Being on the wellness side now of law enforcement, being the president of Survive First, I see the magnitude of calls that come in for help.
Mm-hmm.
Guys struggling. You get this. You do this more than I do. We're on the phone daily to weekly with cops and trauma and stress. And I would say a majority, and we're talking 75% of the traumatic calls that are being put in, they're not from a shooting. They're not from the melee. It's organizational stress. It's shitty supervisors. It's a cop going, hey, boss, that dead baby the other day fucked me up. I
Mm-hmm.
need help. I'm not sleeping. I wasn't prepared to see that, much like I was.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, you need to just call EAP. And then they're up your ass. And then you're being, put in this department. And those are the stresses
Mm-hmm.
that turn in to traumatic events.
Yeah, that institutional betrayal is huge. It's huge.
Yeah. And so, that whole story I gave you,
Mhm.
I see a lot of stress turn into trauma. Everybody thinks it's, it's the dead babies, it's the shootings. As you, me, and Raul know, nah, it ain't the shooting. Nah, no, that fucker shot at me and I shot at him. He missed, I didn't, type of mentality that we all have. But it's the aftermath, and you're the best at saying it. What's this saying that you always say?
Oh, it's not
Yeah,
it's not the event. It's how we're treated in the wake of that event that really kind of messes us up.
that's the best example of stress turning into trauma that I can give you. And that's what happened to me. I was fortunate to have really good supervisors that were my immediate supervisors. I worked with a bunch of dipshits. They every agency has them. We had them as well. But I was fortunate enough that I had about three or four of the best supervisors that I've come across yet, and then some. And so I always had that in my corner pocket. But
Yeah, it's um, there's certain people that I remember on the job. I know one of the biggest things that gets becomes an operational stress. I know for us going into um, when we were doing training on shooting and working on the range, that is a no that is a no fuck around zone. You
yeah,
get your head on a swivel, do what you're supposed to do, and it was ours was run by um, all former military, either drill instructors or special forces guys from the army. They were no joke. I mean, this is serious stuff, and so I understood. And again, I've been shooting my trade in the military was a gunner's mate, so I'm very familiar with shooting. And I remember we're on the line one day and we're shooting, and somebody had um, a double feed, and so they took their gun and they pointed it this way, and they jumped again, rightfully so, and they're just kind of do that and blah blah blah, and they're yelling and all this good stuff, and it was, and I remember thinking at the time, going, that's hilarious, like because I was like, that's a dumb move, but that's somebody that thinking back now, that person never handled a gun, right? So of course they're going to make dumb mistakes like that, but they were on it and all that good stuff. And for the next, because we were there for like initially like a week, that guy was his shooting skills went down like tremendous, significantly down. And I remember one instructor, very soft, wound up later being an assistant chief who is one of the guys that really helped start the wellness program, Ed Ryan. And Ed walks over to this kid. He's struggling. Now, mind you, all the instructors are yelling. Again, the operational stress of this is just you're training. This is what we're doing, blah, 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 going through all the things. Ed takes this kid aside and goes, all right, what are we doing? Soft voice, calm, wasn't adversarial. And I remember years later going up to Ed and asked him, I was like, hey, Chief, what? I remember seeing this one time and blah, blah, or a couple times. And he's like, listen, if I train you and you're doing what you do and you mess up after I've already trained you, I'm going to get in your shit. I'm going to yell at you. He was an old school emergency response team. It was old K9 and our SWAT team were combined, right? So he very aggressive structure and very aggressive. I mean, they fight and they train like they fight and they fight like they train kind of thing. He goes, but if you don't have any of the skills yet, yelling at you ain't going to help. So I talked to this kid, and I got to tell you, his shooting went like amazing after that, because he's like, the kid just didn't know. You're yelling at him. It's like yelling at a dog, 4 or 5 hours later after coming home because you tore something up, and the dog's like, "What are you talking about? That happened." Like that was like 4 days ago that I did. So the way he approached it calmed this kid down. The operational set just dropped it way down. He goes, "We're going to get this right. We're going to take our time." And what is the phrase that most operational folks use is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And the other instructors were yelling at him to be fast before he even got a chance to get the whole process kind of going. So you have that aspect of it. Now, in kind of switching gears a little bit and kind of moving forward, I remember again, and working narcotics, it came to a point where really wasn't anything that was going to come our way that we couldn't handle, right? Like you become so familiar with the work, the paperwork, everything. The paperwork was a little bit stressful, and then I wound up I did an undercover operation that got a little bit more publicity, and as a result, I couldn't work undercover in that capacity anymore, right? So I became kind of running some of the longer term undercover operations and stuff, kind of doing that. And then eventually, because I didn't like that, it's like going from player to coach, and I didn't want to be a coach. I had only, been like on the job 10, 12, 13 years. And I was like, no, I'm still in the mix of it. I still want to be doing this stuff. And a buddy of mine from Lieutenant was like, hey, would you like to come over and work homicide? And I said, you know what? Sure. When I said sure, and we have to do a certain amount of time in a general assignment kind of capacity where you're handling shoplifting, just to get like the mechanics of everything before you just jump into homicide. Robbery and homicide, I've been working with them throughout my career, because if they needed a gun out of a place or to buy dope out of a place, I would go do it so that they can do the search warrant or whatever it is. Informants kind of going back and forth. So that was that, right? And I was getting ready to go over there. And I got to tell you, you put me in a house, unarmed, no Kel, no Mike, nothing, outgunned, outnumbered, and I'm fine. The stress I had going into that unit, because there was a major, major difference. And it was highlighted by a captain at the time who, unbelievably, much respect to this guy. The guy was probably one of the best supervisors I ever worked for, right? He meets everybody that's coming in, especially on the violent crime side. He goes, listen, in narcotics, when they go into your office, you've got them. They're done. They can tell you go pack sand. They're going to prison for life. They're gone. You've worked cases. They are done. Homicide, if you don't get them to talk, you're letting a killer free. And man, when you talk about the bar being raised, I was petrified. And so now it's the occupational stress of, am I doing everything right? Am I going in? Am I doing that? So there's that mode that you're in, right? But here's the thing that kind of switches a little bit. Because, by the way, when we're in narcotics, we've had shootouts and people hurt, stabbed, run over, all sorts of shit. That kind of starts building up the stress. And I'm getting to the point where the operational and the trauma they start to blur a little bit, right? So I'm looking at everything as, especially as a newer officer or halfway through my career, as, hey, this is all operational stress. We see some pretty horrific things. And if you've worked narcotics or in any kind of capacity in that, or you're going to see some people living in some horrific conditions, right? So going into the homicide side of it, I was deathly afraid. So I'm focused on this and this and this. And I remember it was maybe my second or first homicide. No, it was my first homicide. and it was a 4-year-old girl that was beaten. The cause of death was prolonged standing, dehydration, starvation, and multiple blunt force trauma to her face and neck area with the tip of an umbrella. She peed the bed, was put in a corner, and they beat her because she was crying because they beat it was. So I'm working that case. I remember talking to the boyfriend who, for this case, was just sitting on the bed while mom was beating the crap and beating the daughter to death, putting her behind the corner and pushing an armoire so she couldn't move, she couldn't sit down or anything like that. And so I get in there, and I was so riled up, and I'm yelling at him, and I'm like, "You piece of shit! Like, how do you don't do anything, and you see this, you don't even blah, 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 all this good stuff, right?" Like 90 minutes into it. By the way, 4 seconds into it, he confesses to everything as far as, yeah, I knew what she was doing. I did perfectly. I come out, I'm amped. And I didn't realize why I was amped. I was like, I'm doing my job. Seeing that kid fucked me up. Because anybody who's never been to an autopsy is one thing. If you've not been to a child autopsy, they stopped counting impacts at 250 impacts, blunt force trauma. So I had already had that in me going to talk to this person. I come out, my sergeant comes out, and these are good sergeants, and I respect these guys to death. He comes out, pulls me aside, and he goes, "What the fuck was that?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" I got him this. Can you do me a favor? He told you everything you needed within the first 5 seconds of you yelling at him. Then the rest of the transcription is just you yelling at him like an idiot. Shut up and let them talk. Now, nowadays, some folks would be like, that supervisor was mean and he was a little bit abrupt and blah, blah. I didn't look at it that way. I was like, he's telling me what I need to know. I went to go interview the mom. Now, this is our primary, this is our principal in this homicide. And I wanted to say something, and her interview was significantly shorter, but I let her speak. And I walked out. The sergeant that talked to me goes, "That's what I'm talking about. You see how that works?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I got it. Thank you very much." As I'm walking away, our captain, who doesn't speak to anybody, kind of observes, correct? You're a detective. He speaks to his lieutenants. Very structured that way. Comes out because they were watching the interview. Because I'm a new detective in homicide. They want to see what I'm doing. He comes out to me and says, "That was an excellent interview, Chris," and walked away. Which, if you don't know, it's probably some of the highest praise you can get. And I remember feeling like, all right, I did something good, but I was still feeling shitty. I did a good job in investigating the death of a 4-year-old kid. And that's where it started getting blurry. And then, so now that's just operational, a little bit of trauma with seeing the kid and all this other good stuff. Then let's transition over to what that looks like litigiously or in court. In court, it's a whole nother game. Now you don't want to mess up the operational side of it. You don't want to mess up. You want to get your testimony right. You want to get all the facts straight. I was very meticulous in how we did our cases and what I needed when I was on the stand, what we were going to do, because that is going to determine whether or not these pieces of shit go away forever. Here's where the trauma started coming into play. Goes in. By the way, the boyfriend got like 26 years for indifference, for not doing anything.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, that was great. Mom was fighting a bunch of stuff. By the way, she had 8 kids. Her grandmother, this is the trauma starting to creep in. Grandmother had that child, name was Jathea, had that child, had to turn it back over to mom because it was a long weekend and CPS was going to be closed. She had already active open child abuse cases against her. And she goes to the CPS worker, Child Protective Services worker, "If I give this child to her, I'm going to kill this child." 24 hours later, that kid was dead. I wanted to charge the CPS worker because they were just trying to lighten their caseload before this 3-day weekend. Which I was told I couldn't, and I wasn't allowed to do it. Blah, blah. I remember blowing up inside, like disgusted. They're supposed to be taking care of this kid, and I got this job to. Now they're starting to meld together, and now because it's a highly emotional case with kids, it's a homicide of a kid, and not just this kid caught a straight bullet. This kid had injuries significant with people that have been in wars. That 4-year-old kid has seen more combat than all of our elite soldiers in the world for their entire life, right?
Yeah.
Remember that heavy weight, and I remember being very, very bitter. The mother, this all plays into what this looks like of operational versus trauma. Goes to court, gets a psychological eval done, and our team did the psychological eval. She was found sane, fit to stand trial, all good to go. That psychologist passed away. She then fought it and said, hey, listen, they need to do a new psychological eval. So it's kind of prolonging everything. And I'm like, this is bullshit. This is a killer of a kid and blah, blah. The judge gave her 14 years. And I know the judge. And so afterwards, like a month later, we were in proximity. I saw the judge. And they're like, hey, how's it going, detective? I said, first off, this is just me and you, nothing, no official thing. How do you justify a mom that kills one of her kids who's already on several different child endangerment, child abuse dockets and give her 14 years for killing her 4-year-old kid? How do you do that? I said, that's disgusting. He goes, Chris, I follow the letter of the law. I said, fuck your letter of the law. Fuck you. Fuck everybody that has to do anything. I went sideways with it. And I remember working after that, all these other cases becoming very, very bitter. Like, we're going to lock this kid up, and then they're going to get fucking 2 days for doing this or that. So the operational stress of getting everything going, and then the trauma of dealing with that. And again, seeing the dead bodies is one thing that's really never bothered me. It's the family members that we interacted with, that feeling of, I hope we get justice for you, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Sideways, or a technical issue that the sentence gets reduced, or it's not. My heart breaks for that. That, killed me in doing that. I don't know if you had anything on your end that was similar.
Actually, almost verbatim, say it, and those things people don't realize, man. When you work homicide, I had a handful in my career when I was a detective. I got my first day of everything is a curse. So my first day as a detective, I got a homicide. My first day as a supervisor, I got a 9-month-old baby death that homeboy grabbed the baby by the ankle and hit it against the wall. First thing in the morning. First few months on the job, first day on the job, first few months on a job, I had another dead child, little girl that basically, what I would later find out, really impacted and traumatized me. But when you're working those cases, and the stress of wanting to put this person in prison, from making sure that you use the right punctuation in your 3,000-page report, three ring binders this thick, and then you at the time you got a 2-year college degree, and then you go up against this Harvard fucking attorney who takes that punctuation and gets this murderer off. And then everybody's looking at you like you blew it in the family. Like, that stress, right? That was more traumatic and stressful to me. Does that make sense? Kind of the same thing. Working those cases and making sure that everything is okay, because you got the family that wants this person buried. You want this person buried. And then you got these jackasses like we do here in Florida that work at the state attorney's office. And they got a caseload from hell. I feel sorry for them, because we got a lot of dirtbags here. but they just, oh no, we're not going to file this. We can't prove he knew that there was a gun under his pillow while he was sleeping. That type of shit, right? And so
Yeah.
you have that on top of it, and that just manifests into a mountain of stress.
So there's a couple things. It's like there's a helplessness to it.
Yeah.
Uh, there is a the best way I could describe it is there's a scene, and I always go back to movies. There's a scene on Saving Private Ryan where the medic is working on a guy, and as he's working on him, just doing everything he can to save this soldier's life. As he's doing that, stops the bleeding. The soldier gets shot in the head,
Yeah. Yes,
and
man.
he's like, "Give me a," like there was the frustration, the anxiety of all that stuff. Now, while you're working, it's hey, this is part of it. Everybody else is doing it, and you don't want to be like, well, this is kind of affecting me a little bit. That's the old school way that we were doing it, and how we were all kind of worked through it. And then it starts kind of manifesting it, and you become cynical and you become like jaded. And I remember when I noticed, and again, I went to homicide post shooting, so my give a shit was busted a good while before that, and I was kind of going through some pretty dark times at that place, and it just all kind of it was cumulative. It just all kind of stacked on top of each other, and I remember distinctly one day being very angry and emotional, and I could not figure out why. I was like, "There's not one. What's that? What's the one thing there is not one thing bothering me. There's 5,000 things bothering me." And on several occasions throughout my career, I'm like, "Fuck this! I'm done." Like I'm gonna go through the steps. I'm gonna just go through the motions. Why do I even want to do? That's when the occupational stress in tandem with the trauma. See, these things don't happen by themselves, and they don't exist in silos. They're not one thing or the other. They happen all together. And I remember being so invested in cases and watching other detectives who are horrible, not doing shit, getting convicted. I mean, doing what they're the bare minimum, winning cases, losing whatever it is, wasn't even phasing them, or at least it appeared that it wasn't phasing them. And I'm like, how do you do this job and not put everything into it, and you just kind of you're checking a box, like that to me blew my mind. And I was like, one of a couple different things. So I was like, let me do I quit? Do I just because for me going to the street would have been great because we used to call that 8 and hit the gate. Just do your 8 hours. At the time it was 8-hour shifts. Do 8-hour shifts and then you're gone. No one's calling you after work. That was another thing operationally. If you're working investigations or special operations, there is no time off. Anytime you have off, I guarantee you're going to either get called in or there's going to be a call out or something's going to happen. So you're constantly like in this state of hypervigilance, right? But it wasn't until I was like, all right, kind of working through my stuff, getting a lot of stuff together, that I said, you know what? I think I'd like to be a supervisor. I want to help some of the folks like me who were going through it, who were kind of struggling, and guide them a little bit better. And I looked at the way my captain in homicide handled it, or for the detective bureau handled it, the way the one guy on the firing range when it was in the academy handled that one kid that was struggling. Like those folks kind of stuck out to me because they made better cops. To me, in my opinion, those few supervisors made some unbelievable cops better. I mean, they would have been good cops anyway, but they made them better, just more emotionally sound and grounded and just technically astute to what they needed to do, how they needed to do it. So then I had the struggle of going to take the promotional test, which is I'd just been in a shooting, my 7th one. I was getting a divorce, my 2nd one. I was living in a friend's house above his garage with minimal shit, broke, and studying, and I was finishing my postgraduate schoolwork. I don't know that I could have had more stress on me at the time, and I was handling all that phenomenally because I would just drink myself into oblivion. You work until you can't work no more. Then I partied as hard as I worked, and I worked very hard. So it kind of bleeds in. At that moment in time when all that shit is happening, you're drinking, you're and by the way, operational stress and trauma doesn't always look like I'm sad. It looks like I'm gonna go balls to the wall partying. I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna do all sorts of crazy shit. I'm just gonna do all this stuff. I'm gonna be aggressive. I'm gonna throw caution to the wind. I'm gonna do all sorts of. That's sometimes what that looks like. So once I started going through treatment and therapy and all this other stuff for all the other stuff that I was dealing with, I started getting a clearer picture of what this all looked like. And what it is it's the operational stress, and then you put all the shit that you get to see because of that operational stress. So it's like I'm trying to be the best I can be, and being the best I can be puts me in these positions to see dead kids, friends complete suicide, people getting sick and dying. I'm just all these different things, lost relationships. I got to tell you, being in shootings and all this, that's one thing. The dread of going home and knowing that your home is a fucking in shambles is just, it's not even, I don't even want to say it's icing on top. Imagine putting icing on a brick and then slamming it down on top of everything that you're dealing with. It's just one, and it becomes this so overwhelming that all you're doing to the best of your ability is staying afloat. That is operational stress and trauma all smashed up into one ugly ass component, right? With 15,000 different feeding tubes. Like it's getting fed by this. I can't, I need to work extra or overtime because I need money to do this. And I can't because I'm being investigated because I did a job on my overtime where it generated a complaint and and then I go home, which is what the divorce and your personal life is falling apart. You're all this other shit, and then you go into work, which for me was like the most relaxing, like the best place that I can kind of get my shit together. But it was also causing the most stress. So my safe place was creating this fucking shit show, and then it just cyclical. It kind of fed each other, and then so that's pre, during. Then you starting getting towards the end of your career and the operational stress of that, which kind of diminishes a little bit. There was nothing as a supervisor they could do or put me that was going to hurt me. I mean, I worked Central Records, I worked Canine, I've worked all these really nice places. And then I started thinking, well, what does this look like afterwards? And I'm like, man, I went to school for a reason, did my post-grad work for a reason, because I wanted to help people. But what does that look like on the other side? And then, as myself, Doug, and Raul, and we all know, I took all that shit and I was like, that's behind me. That shit wasn't behind me. I was toting it the whole time. And then I come into this place where all we are dealing with on a day-to-day basis is people in crisis. And when I tell you that that is there could be no clearer combination of operational stress and traumatic exposure than dealing with multiple individuals in crisis. So you want to do a good job for them, but you're also emotionally involved with it. Doug, some of the guys and girls that call you, I know when I've been on the phone with them and I'm listening to them and trying to figure out, all right, what are we going to do? How can we help you? All this stuff. That's like vicarious trauma. I'm taking all that stuff in. But operationally, I'm like, all right, what do we need to do? I need insurance. I need to go this. What can you do? What are you able to do? All that. It's fucking heavy.
Yeah.
And doing that times 300 is just even more. So I thought the job behind me, I'm clear. I'm one. I'm getting a paycheck to not go back anymore. And then we land in here. Now, Doug, you and Karen and all the folks over Survive First, you have so many annual things that come up, like events, races, the galas, all the charitable stuff. But then you also are helping people at the same time. So all the shit that you went through on the job that put you like underneath a hospital,
yeah,
you got out of that rubble and started doing it again. So what was the combination? Because you guys are the definition of operational stress / trauma exposure. First, what does that look like on your end?
I always call it absorbing the trauma because, no, like you would say, nobody ever calls you just to say, hey, I'm having a great day. And hey, thank you for what you did for me. You don't get them calls, but you get the calls of somebody calling one, their life's upside down. You immediately are feeling sorry for them as they're telling you all the shit that's wrong with them. Then in the underlining, there's suicidal ideology behind it. There's, you're, oh my God, if I say the wrong thing, they're going to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And then they're, hey, I don't have no money. I don't have insurance because every cop, they can never do it
Yeah.
at the right time. They got to wait till the wheels fall off. And then you're like, now I got to go find them money. I got to find them a place. I got to do all this type of stuff. And then I got to keep my fingers crossed that it works. And then and people have no idea it's a long process. Then they go to a treatment center. We don't pick treatment centers for people, they pick themselves.
Yeah.
And then when they get out, we get the call again because they've got bills stacked up and or the place they went to sucked. Or there's, one notorious place that every time a client gets home, they have a $15,000 bill waiting for them. And how this company gets away with it is beyond me. So now they've just done, it was kind of like me. And when I went to treatment, I came back and I was like, oh my God, I'm finally, for the first time in years, I don't want to kill myself. And then I go do something. And while I'm gone, somebody comes and takes my kid away from me. So now I got this whole other can of worms. It's just kind of the same thing. It's an ongoing process that these people have. And then on top of that, so we have to raise money. We have to raise money. That's why we do so many fundraising events, because everybody's a nonprofit nowadays. You got 1,000 fly-by nights out there that come into the scene and, oh, we want to help first responders. Yeah, that bullshit. And so you're fighting those. All that, I went from a tropical storm. What I thought was a hurricane that I worked in was a tropical storm, because I'm in a hurricane now, and there's tornadoes that are out there as well. So I went from one fire to another. I tell people all the time, they look online, especially at all of us, and they think we live this lavish lifestyle because we travel all over the United States and we're speaking at all these cool places. And I'm looking at them going, you're a fucking idiot if you think that's cool. You think I like getting up on a stage and telling everybody everything I did wrong
Yeah.
and what ended me up here. And there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure that comes with that. And so what I tell people is, I wish I would have stayed working.
Yeah.
Being a drug agent's fun as shit.
Yeah.
Outside of dudes, cartel guys wanting to kill you,
Yeah.
but buying and selling drugs is fun as shit. Drinking on the job, hanging out in strip
Awesome.
clubs and partying and driving fancy cars, all the Miami Vice shit you see on TV. Yeah, that's fun. It's not that hard to wake up and go buy drugs and sell drugs. But doing this career, doing this, and I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I planned on riding that fucking thing on the wall the rest of my life and these surfboards to the left of me. That's not the case, man. I barely have time to do that. So there is a combination of, and it's a topic that people don't talk about: stress, organizational stress, or what was the word we used in the beginning? And then trauma. So there's stress, there's trauma, and there are two different things. And if people understood what they really meant, it might be a lot easier for them to navigate through this, to
So
get the
no,
proper help.
100%. So I think it's real important because we're coming up toward the end. I want to kind of, instead of just like down, 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 kind of what do we do? But there's the operational stress comes down to eustress. So there's two types of stress: eustress and distress. Distress kind of overwhelming. It's really not as beneficial. Eustress is the competition, like the stress you feel in a triathlon or Ironman, or in taking a test, or in practicing or in training. That's good. It'll elevate your game. Again, nothing gained in success has been gained without any kind of the stress part of it. Like that's a really good component of it. You can't. Some of the stuff that I use all the time is like the saying is, calm seas never made a great sailor. That's because that you get taxed a little bit. So what do? I got to tell you. So myself, Doug, Raul, Chris, a couple of the other folks that we work with, we go all these places, and it is stressful, and me making meeting people and stuff like that. The greatest benefit that I have is in between or before we get there, when me, Doug, and Raul, we're all together, and we are just together. I can't tell you, Doug knows this. My stomach hurt from laughing at that one place that we were at. I got to tell you, the joy. Listen, our lives are filled with a lot of stress, both occupational and traumatic exposures, or vicariously through these other folks. So I take solace in a couple different things. A, having that core group of friends that we're not only talking to each other during the bad times, but we're having great times together. One of the greatest, aside from that one day that I thought I was going to die from laughing so hard, was I flew in late to Dallas. It was a conference or something. It was like midnight by the time I had gotten there, and everybody else, Doug and you guys, were all there. You and Ash, I kind of waited up. Everybody was kind of dying down. It'd been like everybody was drinking, having a good time, and I wasn't drinking at the time. And I come in, and Doug waited up for me. He's like, "Hey, you were getting in. I just wanted to hang." And we hung out, and then a crew of us, and I got a big shout out to Megan Holloway. She's my partner in crime. Me, you, Megan, Sherry from FOP. We're all kind of hanging out. In those moments are utter joy. Like they are what makes all the other bullshit tolerable. Like that, those really cool moments, us sitting down at a Mexican restaurant in California, or us going in somewhere in Oklahoma when we were sitting out on the patio. It was me, you, it was Danny, it was a couple of I think your kid even showed up because he was stationed out at the Air Force. Yeah. We all sat down in the courtyard of this hotel. Those moments they're the greatest medicine that you could ever have. Treatment's great and getting yourself straight is great, but having that camaraderie, for me, that's, again, it's not for everybody, but for me, those are what keep me grounded. The excitement, seeing pictures of Doug with a grandbaby, or somebody going somebody just sent something where they got accepted to a really great university, and all that, like going through these great big life moments. That's one thing. Love that. Wouldn't trade it for the world. But then it's the home. I get to hang out with Jill. We watch whatever movies we're all into, whether it be horror or all this other stuff. And I've got my friends over here that we do like the paranormal stuff. Ultimately, your sleep gets affected, your eating habits, your stress, all the physiological aspects of trauma and occupational stress, they all kind of build up. Get close with your family. They're the ones that are going to be there. Get close with your friends. They're the ones that are going to be there when all this shit goes to shit, right? So there is no one fix-all. But there is one thing you can do. Always try to make time for you and your friends so that you can, I guess, kind of relish in this community that you've created, right, around you. And you're only as strong as the group of folks that you're around. And you're only as weak as well, because being around the wrong people can bring you down. I've been blessed where, myself, and again, I'll for the three, me, Doug, and Raul, we were at my sister's house in Jersey, had a fucking blast. We were somewhere else. I'll see Doug and Raul off somewhere having fun. It was just recently. You guys were in New York. I was in New York. They were getting ready to land. I remember getting excited going, I can't wait to show them a picture of all the snow that I'm in right now so that they're getting ready to walk into this shit show of a snowstorm, right? Like those are the things that bring joy and that that live in the moment. And so I'd much rather stock my memory with those than with all the horrific shit and tasks that I have to do, whatever it is, right? So again, occupational stress, again, even working in after action, helping a ton of people. putting this product, which is awesome, out there is great, but getting to do it with my friends is you can't pay for that. There's no amount of money you can put on the joy, and getting to talk with Karen. And I, again, my part-time job is sending Doug's wife funny cat videos. Like, that's, I love that. That's, and then she'll send one. It's so, or my wife will get one from Karen, and then we go back and forth. This is not all doom and gloom. I
Yeah.
think the beauty of going through all this terrifically horrible stuff is that it gives you an appreciation for how awesome the good times can be. And I'll leave it with this. There's two certainties when you're going through a bad time or a good time. If you're going through a good time, or I'm sorry, if you're going through a bad time, understand that will end and you'll have a good time. At the same note, going through a good time, we have the understanding that will end at some point too, briefly, and then you'll have that bad time. So it ebbs and flows. There is no perfect fix, and you'll be great and happy all the live long days. It's navigating those brief moments of great, awesome times and shitty times, and having a good support team over there to call you on your bullshit, which Doug and Raul have done on my end. Like, hey, Chris, you need to fucking get your shit together. It's not coming from being mean, and that's bring it full circle. When Ryan was talking to that one kid on that firing line, he knew yelling wasn't going to help, but he was honest with them. Just like Doug and Raul were honest with me, and they're like, hey, this is what we got to do. You know, we're here. Let's figure it out. Slow, smooth is fast, and we'll get through this. So with all that in consideration, we got a new year coming up. And for some reason, we picked the January 1st as the date to kind of restart or anything like that. You can restart whenever you want. You can restart last week. You can restart March 5th. I don't give a shit what day it is. But we've all collectively chosen January 1st, which I'm not looking forward to because the gym I go to, the first month in January, every fucking asshole that's like, I'm going to start a new workout routine, takes up all the machines and all this other stuff. So that's the stress I'm getting ready to deal with, right? And going tonight. Like, nobody's at the gym tonight for New Year's Eve. So when I go, it's going to be awesome. There's going to be nobody there. And then January 2nd, because normally the first everybody's sleeping off the night before, it's going to be a shit show. But again, take this time to live this next year. I know you have all the stresses financially, work-related, occupational, and the trauma that you see. Take time for yourself. Because if you don't take time for yourself, it'll eat you up. It'll swallow you whole. And it's not only destroying you, it's going to destroy you and everybody that you love and that's close to you and that cares about you. So with that, Doug, you got anything to wrap up? Because I know we went a little bit over.
That's all right. Yeah, so, I was kind of reiterate what Chris was saying about, end the year and start the year on a good note, however that looks like for you. Tomorrow, like you said, is a great day for a restart, but you can restart every year. Every New Year's, I put a post out, something to the effect where I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be the same asshole I was last year. And I will be, but, me personally, I'm just grateful that I have one more year ahead of me. And I'm grateful to live through the year that just passed me. Don't spend so much time looking at all the trauma and all the horrific stuff. When people spend so much time looking at all the what ifs and all the horrible things that happened to me and all that, and right in front of you could be the most beautiful things you could imagine. And so for me tonight, I will end this year with the most beautiful thing in my life, and I will wake up tomorrow with the most beautiful thing in my life. That's my wife.
Yeah.
I crave that for this year. Just
Yeah.
more time. Be grateful for the little things, and and I would say my mother always used to say this to me, and I never really understood it. My mom come from Italy, and she was a pretty devout Christian Catholic, and she would always say to me, Doug, peace be with you. And I would always be like, yeah, whatever. And also with you. That's what the Italians say in church, never. But I didn't realize until I got to be around this age how important peace is in your life and how important it is to have peace with you. So I would say to you, in ending 2025, may peace be with you in 26.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So again, guys, thanks for tuning in. As always, kind of if you have any suggestions for what you want to hear or what you want us to talk about, go ahead and shoot us an email. The information will be here in a little bit. But again, if you or somebody you know is struggling, you're not sure what to do or who to give a call to, give us a shout. If we don't know, we know somebody that can help you. So you guys have a great, safe New Year's Eve, and we'll see you on the other side.